Our next example will be choice of strength vials. So let's take a look at what our options are here. So if we are ordering 750,000 units of penicillin G, the label info says 5 million units gives us a few choices. So we have the volume of the diluent, and the concentration. So if the volume of the diluent is 3.2 milliliters, our concentration is 1 million units per milliliter. If the volume of the diluent is 8.2 milliliters, the concentration is 500,000 units per milliliter. And if it's 18.2 milliliters, it is 250,000 units per milliliter. Now we have to choose which one of these three is the best one to use. Now we're ordering 750,000. We'd like to choose one fairly close, but do not choose a concentration higher than the one that's given. 1 million units is higher than 750,000, so that's not one that I want to choose to use. What I'm going to choose to use instead is the closest one to 750,000 that is smaller than 750,000. So the strategy to use is the second one, namely 8.2 milliliters correspond to 500,000 units per milliliter. So again, choose the concentration smaller than ordered, but closest to what's ordered. So indeed we're going to choose that second example. Now how are we going to do that? We have ordered 750,000 units. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and use our middle condition, which is 500,000 units per milliliter. So the way this works now is we're going to take our powder, we're going to add the 8.2 milliliters, mix them all together in a vial. Once we're in that vial, we know that that vial has 500,000 units per milliliter. So we'll have units downstairs, we'll have milliliters upstairs, and our unit conversion here again is 500,000 units per milliliter. So we'll notice that units cancels. 750,000 divided by 500,000 is, of course, 1.5 milliliters. So after we mix the powder with the diluent, 8.2 milliliters of that diluent, our ratio is 500,000 units per milliliter. Then we would administer 1.5 milliliters of solution. So that would be one dose, and again, we don't know how often we're giving that dose. We don't know the stability to see if we could, use the rest of that vial later, or if we're just going to have to discard that. obviously you wouldn't use the same needle on two different patients, but if you have the same patient and the material is stable, there is a chance that you would reuse that. But again, I want to let your leaders in the field tell you what the standards for care are currently. Okay, let's take a look at another example. So this time we're going to say ordered 100,000 units. Each morning. So let's take a look at what it says on the label. What do we have on our label? We have our volume of the diluent, and we have concentration. So if we add 7.8 milliliters to the powder that we're given, we have 50,000 units per milliliter. If we have 5.6 milliliters, if we add that diluent, we then have 100,000 units per milliliter. So if we're adding less, of course it would be stronger. And if we only add 3.4 milliliters of diluent, we would have 200,000 units per milliliter. Well, this one's perfect because we have 100,000. Our rule is pick something smaller than or equal to, right? 100,000 is smaller than or equal to. Don't pick one larger. So you wouldn't go with the 200,000. So our best choice is to use the middle case. So use 5.6 milliliters of diluent. So once that's the case, we now are ordering how much? We are ordering 100,000 units of this medication. So we're ordering 100,000 units. But once I've done that, we are looking at what? We're looking at 100,000 units per milliliter for this case. 100,000 units per milliliter. Of course, what we would get there, the units would cancel, and our result is just 1 milliliter. So how often do we administer this? Administer 1 milliliter of solution every morning. Let's do one more. Ordered 75 units each morning. What's our label information? So we have volume of diluent, concentration. So if we add 7.8 milliliters, then our concentration is 50,000 units per milliliter. If I add 5.6 milliliters, I now have 100,000 units per milliliter. If I add 3.4 milliliters, we now have 200,000. Units per milliliter. So how much of what strength? Do you give the patient and how often? Well, you want to choose the one that is closest to 75,000, but not more than 75,000. 100,000 is more than 75,000. I can't use it. 200,000 is more than 75,000. I can't use it. I have to use the first case. So we're going to add 7.8 milliliters of diluent. That's the version that they want us to use here. So once we're doing that, what have I ordered? I've ordered 75,000 units. And in that first case, when I use 7.8 milliliters of diluent, I have 50,000 units per milliliter. So I want to convert units to milliliters. And in that 7.8 case, I have a total of 50,000 units per 1 milliliter. Units cancel. The result is milliliters. 75,000 divided by 50,000 gives us 1.5. So administer 1.5 milliliters of solution every morning. And that will conclude this lesson.